Is there anything of value in terms of putting yourself in a position where the foods you are eating can make it less likely you're going to have digestive issues? I'm thinking like fermented vegetables, fermented dairy for that matter. Are those things where, like, for example, if I'm eating fermented dairy or just yogurts, perhaps, kefir, is that going to potentially put me in a position where I'd be better able to also use just commercial dairy along the side of it?
So there's not an answer to that. We know a lot of those foods are healthy. They're rich in nutrients. I love yogurt. I love cottage cheese. I love kimchi. I'll eat anything pickled any day of the week. And we know that there is not a lot of evidence that probiotic supplements are beneficial to people because of a lot of reasons, because they typically don't contain the diverse species that live in your gut. They're often not the right species. They're tiny little dosage compared to the millions and trillions of bacteria that are in there. But getting some of these live microorganisms for your food, we don't know enough to say that for a certain cohort of people, it's going to be beneficial or there's no evidence to suggest it's harmful. There's no evidence to suggest that it's going to prevent an illness or prevent digestive issues or things like that. So, again, if they're nutritious and you enjoy them, eat them, right? But the microbiome is too complex and difficult to study in a comprehensive way for us to say that, okay, well, if you eat some kefir along with unfermented dairy, you're less likely to have issues with digesting lactose. It's just not there yet. And it's going to vary personally.
Sure. So you're just throwing darts in the dark at that point, and maybe you get, if there's something there, maybe you get lucky, but it's not going to be something transferable from you to your friend if they're having similar situations.
Exactly. But that's, the at-home microbiome tests are getting really popular too. And I know I covered like 800 different topics, but those are like the Wild West, right? Because again, you're not sampling the whole microbiome. You're only sampling what actually comes out in stool, and that's not necessarily representative of everything that's living there. And the tests use different technologies, use different methods. They're only detecting certain species. And so even with those, like if you're curious, that's cool, but you can't use it to make any sort of determination or use it to inform changes in your behavior or in your diet, because I think people also forget that those things, those bacteria, they're dynamic, they're alive, right? So they're going to respond and react to whatever you put in there. And some species might digest certain things better. And so you might see those numbers go up and other ones go down. And then if you eat something different, the reverse might be true. Doesn't mean one way is bad or good. It just means that they're dynamic and they're responding to the food you're giving them, right? But people are trying to use that to hack their health and make inferences about, artificial sweeteners are bad because, this study showed that if people drank sodas with aspartame, the microbiome populations changed. And when they, drink glucose, they, change differently. And it's like, yeah, well, all you can say about that is that they change. You don't know. There's no one's good, one's bad. It's just that is what they are. And again, we don't know enough about what those things mean to say one thing or the other. So it's people fall into the trap of having too much information at their disposal and using it to make conclusions that are just not supported.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Human Performance Outliers podcast with Zach Bitter.